You don't need more. You need the wisdom to stop. There's a strange truth about wealth that most people never discover. A truth so quiet, so subtle, that it hides in plain sight. You won't find it in a financial book, or a spreadsheet, or in the mind of the person who's endlessly chasing the next upgrade. But you will find it in the life of someone who has learned something far rarer: the art of knowing enough. This story begins on a late evening, long after the noise of the city has settled into a soft hum. The compass keeper stands beside a dimly lit window, his silhouette barely visible against the night. In front of him lies an old brass compass, not pointing north, but glowing faintly, as if it's responding to a question the world has been asking for centuries. How much is enough? It's a question that seems simple until you try to answer it honestly. Because most people don't live their lives based on what they truly need. They live based on what they think they should want, what everyone around them is chasing, what feels like success when they compare themselves to the next person and the next and the next. You can trace the entire story of human struggle to a single belief: that happiness sits just one step beyond where you are, one skill away, one promotion away, one purchase away, one version of yourself you haven't become yet. And so they chase, endlessly, restlessly, blindly. But here's the quiet truth: if you don't know what enough looks like, then no amount will ever feel like enough. Years ago, there was a man who spent his entire adult life climbing every ladder handed to him, climbing through titles, promotions, neighborhoods, and cars, climbing past every milestone he once swore would satisfy him. Each victory felt good, but only for a moment, a day, sometimes an hour. Because as soon as he reached one peak, he saw another one shining just a little bit higher, a little bit brighter, and without question, without pause, he began climbing again. He wasn't greedy, not in the way people imagine. He was simply afraid that stopping, even for a breath, meant falling behind, afraid that if he ever rested, someone else would get ahead, afraid that enough was just another word for mediocre. And so life became a race with no finish line. One evening, long after midnight, he realized something was wrong. He looked around his beautiful home, a place he once dreamed of, and felt nothing. Not gratitude, not pride, just a quiet, persistent emptiness, as if everything he had built was missing the one thing he actually needed. That night, he walked outside to clear his mind. The street was silent, the sky moonless. As he stood under a flickering street lamp, he saw his reflection in a darkened window. Not the expensive suit, not the polished shoes, but the tired eyes of a man who had spent years chasing something he could never catch. Across the street stood a small park bench. On it sat an older man, calmly eating an apple, staring at the sky like he had nowhere else to be. He wasn't wealthy, not by any conventional measure, but something about him radiated a kind of quiet confidence, a peace the businessman had never felt. They exchanged a nod, and the older man said the simplest, most disarming thing: "You look like someone who hasn't found his enough yet." The businessman frowned. "Enough what?" The older man smiled gently. "Enough anything." That line stayed with him for years. 2 words: enough anything. Because if you don't understand the boundaries of your own desire, desire expands. If you never learn the art of stopping, you accelerate. If you never define a destination, you wander forever. The compass keeper teaches a similar truth. He never speaks, yet his presence is a reminder. The compass only has meaning when you choose a direction. Without that choice, even the finest compass is worthless, because direction without intention is just movement, and movement without enough becomes chaos disguised as ambition. So what does it actually mean to know enough? It doesn't mean rejecting growth. It doesn't mean settling for less, and it certainly doesn't mean abandoning your potential. Knowing enough is something deeper, something more profound. It's the moment you understand that wealth is not about getting everything you want. It's about reducing the wants that pull you away from your life. It's the realization that there's a difference between more and meaning, between growth and grasping, between abundance and excess. Enough is the boundary that protects you from the infinite hunger of comparison. Enough is the shield against the modern world's addiction to more. Enough is the key, because enough is knowable. More is not. There's a peculiar thing psychologists discovered about the human mind. When people estimate how much money they need to be satisfied, the number almost always lands at about double what they currently have. Doesn't matter if they earn $40,000, $80,000, or $200,000. The answer is always the same, just twice as much. This means the finish line moves exactly as fast as you run. But the people who live truly wealthy lives, quietly wealthy lives, follow a different rule. They define their enough before they chase anything. They know how much money is enough, how much work is enough, how much growth is enough, how much ambition is enough, not to stop evolving, but to stop diluting their life with the illusion that more is automatically better. Because more is not the enemy. Unbound desire is. There's a moment in every life where desire, comparison, and ambition collide. Some people break, some people become bitter, some people chase even harder, but a rare few, they do something different. They pause, they breathe, they step back from the noise and ask the one question no one teaches us to ask: what if I already have enough? That question changes the air in the room. It shifts the frame from hunger to gratitude, from scarcity to clarity, from chasing to choosing. When you know enough, something subtle happens. Your decisions become cleaner. Your time becomes sharper. Your attention becomes more controlled. You stop giving yourself away to things that don't matter. You stop spending energy on status battles no one wins. You stop trying to outrun people who aren't even aware you're racing them. Knowing enough creates wealth, not because it gives you more, but because it stops you from wasting the wealth you already have. You begin to notice the small luxuries you once ignored. A quiet morning, a walk without your phone, a conversation that wasn't rushed. You become harder to influence, harder to manipulate, harder to shake. You develop a kind of internal solidity that doesn't wobble every time someone else gets ahead of you. This is the soil where lasting wealth grows. Not the loud kind, not the performative kind, but the kind that feels like a deep exhale. Imagine two people. One is constantly chasing upgrades, phones, cars, houses, titles, experiences, never pausing, never resting, always reaching. The other knows exactly what enough looks like. They still pursue excellence, still build, still grow, but their ambition has boundaries. Their desires have a shape. Their efforts have a purpose. Which one do you think becomes wealthier over a lifetime? The one who can define enough. Because they're operating within a system that compounds positively instead of leaking endlessly. Lasting wealth is compounded clarity, not clarity about the future, clarity about the present, clarity about what matters, what doesn't, what deserves your energy, and what never will. In the quiet glow of the compass keeper's silhouette slowly fades into shadow. The message is simple but profound. A compass only becomes powerful when you remove all the directions you'll never choose, when you eliminate the noise, when you know, truly know, what is enough. That knowledge creates a kind of wealth the world can't measure. A wealth that doesn't depend on market cycles or raises or luck. A wealth that sits quietly in your mind, anchoring you, guiding you, protecting you from losing the one thing most people spend their entire lives giving away: themselves. So ask yourself, honestly, gently, what is enough for you? Not enough to impress, not enough to prove, not enough to keep up, enough to live. Because the moment you know that, the moment you can say, this is enough, you become free from the endless chase. And once you're free, you can finally build something that lasts. Knowing enough is the key to lasting wealth, and knowing enough might just be the day you begin to live wealthy.